Hi, I'm Gwendolyn Gray, and I'm going to read some selections for you from my novel, Sojourn After Midnight. And in this particular video, I'm going to do a few scenes from part 2 out of 6 parts of the story. Part 1 covered the very foundation of the story with Sojourn and Murray encountering some strange ferryman and going to the alternate world of Kabul. Now, part 2 covers Murray's experiences in a little more depth, and of course this will have some spoilers, so be forewarned. Not my big spoilers, but some of them, and smaller ones. So, let's start with scene 4 from part 2. Now, Murray sat alone in a coffee shop in her neighborhood 2 nights after Sohyun had revealed that he too had been approached by the midnight ship. Hardly anyone was around since it was 9:30 at night, and her family would be winding down for the evening, watching TV and getting ready for bed soon. She understood that whatever drama had been playing out beyond the night sky in the worlds of Kabul and Akmusin was now entwined in her family, as Sohyun had been inadvertently lured into the war, whatever it was. The thought dismayed her. Murray worried for the safety of her family and feared for her own future. Sohyun, always having been the aimless one in the family and the subject of her father's concern because of his low grades, clearly didn't care as much as since he was too fascinated by the exotic Minha and the adventure set before him. But Murray was a little older, and she could see the danger lurking around them. What was she supposed to do now? Still, at least, she could count on Sohyun as an ally. She didn't have to face the anomaly alone, or wonder if it were all just her imagination, since he had gone to Kabul too. But how would they hide it from their parents? Would Sukjin be brought into the battle too, or would they have to sneak around her as well? How would Murray hold down a job while having these nocturnal journeys? For now, it seemed like no time passed when Ponto came to them and took them over the inner sea, so perhaps it didn't matter. One detail that Murray had held back during her meeting with Sohyun over the night journeys was the parchment Minha had given him. Murray had held back that detail because what was written on it had disturbed her so much, though she didn't understand the meaning of what it said or why it was written in her native tongue in places. The native writing of Kabul looked like a cross between ancient Greek and Egyptian hieroglyphics, beautiful but unintelligible. One of the pictographs that kept appearing seemed to be a ferocious cat facing forward with its body turned to either side, wearing a crown like the old European heraldry symbol. The parchment was painted in black ink, so Murray wasn't sure what sort of cat it might be, and what she assumed to be the translation of the exotic heavy script above didn't illuminate the mystery. In the day when the pearl of wonder dawns, the ancestors would climb the mountain of wisdom and rule the land of Kabul in peace. The key to unlock the secrets of the crypt has been hidden by the ancestors beneath the blue waterfalls of the north. Only mutiny can delay the time of times. Only love can alter the destiny of the world. Who will wear the crown in the end? Will it be worn for good or for evil? Murray read the parchment a few times, alert to any of the coffee shop workers hovering too close to where she nursed her cup near the window. It probably didn't matter if the meaning solved, but it would attract too much attention and raise too many questions if we did. The words in the parchment sounded like a riddle. Folding the parchment back up and slipping it into the protected compartment of her purse, she finished the last few mouthfuls of coffee and waved to the barista. Walking home among mostly deserted streets as her watch read 10:15, Murray crossed the street when the light turned green, thinking again about Sohyun. They hadn't talked for a few days about anything important, and maybe she should ask him for more details of his visit to Kabul than she had dared over dinner the other night. She wrestled with the question all the way home, deciding as she arrived and entered through the side door that she should just wait a few more days. Dreams of the parchment filled her sleep. Curling letters punctuated by pictographs danced through her mind, and toothy-grinned cats overcoming and eating the other letters. Visions of a blue lake that led to a range of tiered waterfalls slowly transposed itself over images of the parchment, and Murray felt herself wading into the cool water at the base of the falls, plunging beneath its surface, holding her breath while looking for the promised treasure, the ring on her hand glowing like the sun, a beam of light from it searching the depths of the waters like a flashlight. Feeling something brushing against her leg, Murray turned in the water, catching a glimpse of something reptilian with large sharp teeth in the corner of her eye. Suddenly, the inviting blue waters turned slowly to black. like ink was being poured into them. As it touched her lips, she tasted something metallic in it. Blood. Part 2, Scene 5. Now, Mirae is back in Kabul for this scene, so she's now there in training in Minha's temple. As the mask touched her skin, the room disappeared, and Mirae felt as though she wore a mask of icy marble. She recoiled at its touch, and shuddering, shut her eyes tightly, taking a few deep breaths until she felt in control. When she opened her eyes, she found herself outside in a beautiful plaza on a sunny day. The plaza was bordered by 3-story buildings with ancient-looking colonnades, painted vermilion and trimmed with silver and green vines. The plaza itself was inlaid with silvery marble bricks with green veins. Mirae had never seen anything quite like it on Earth, but what she saw next left her even more surprised. Movement in one corner of the plaza caught her eye. Turning to look at it more directly, her eyes met those of a cat, a large, slow animal that now seemed wary after discovering her presence. Like the mask, it was a white tiger. Wondering how the mask made her appear before the noble animal, Mirae stood still, watching it approach. "Who are you?" it asked in a deep male voice, never taking its eyes off of her. "Those who approach us are specifically invited. No one ever comes to us unannounced." "I was invited," Mirae said, trying to explain. She suddenly felt uncomfortable in this place and wanted to take the mask off. Would the vision end if she did? Minha had not mentioned sending a new acolyte, though I see you wear the ring of the royal family. "Who are you?" the tiger asked again, now halfway across the plaza and closing the distance between them much more swiftly. "Mirae Choi," she said, nearly tripping over the words. Feeling an uncontrollable panic, Mirae's hands went inadvertently to her face as the tiger came close enough for her to smell its breath, scented oddly of honeysuckle, and see its gleaming fangs. Peeling off the mask, the scene before her changed. Gone were the gaudy marble facades, though she now still stood in a plaza in the bright sunshine instead of returning to the room where she had found the mask. The air still smelled of springtime flowers, but the surrounding buildings bordering the plaza's red stone walkways appeared to be constructed with various types of wood and clay ceramic tiles, their sweeping, curved rooftops looking more alien than the Greco-Roman style in the visions. A man stood before her, looking at her in consternation as she held a mysterious mask in her hands. "Juria, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be out of your quarters. I gave strict instructions that you should not be seen in public until we can come to an agreement." Mirae just stared at him, uncomprehending. Juria was the queen, wasn't she? Why would this man think she was the queen or talk to her so angrily? Was she under arrest? Studying the man's face, full of irritation as he continued to speak about things Mirae had no understanding of, she had to admit he was attractive in a bitter sort of way. His blue eyes contrasted with his tanned skin and dark brown hair that brushed the collar of his richly embroidered green toga. Mirae suddenly could understand So-hyun's immediate fascination with Minha, and regretted thinking his reaction was childish. The immortals had more charisma than anyone she had ever encountered. She tried not to stare at the man. His face twisted into a look of disgust, but pierced Mirae's heart, and she felt uncomfortable knowing she had done something to displease him. "Have you heard a word I just said to you, Juria? You need to get back to your room and stay there." "I'm sorry. I told you my name is Mirae," she said, more flustered than before. "Didn't I tell you? Was it you I was talking to you a moment ago?" Her voice trailed off as she struggled to make sense of what was real and what had only happened in the vision. She realized she sounded so out of it, but the man's face softened as he repeated her name to himself. "Yes, you said that already. But when I saw your face, you looked so much like my sister I didn't think anything of it. I'm sorry. I've made a mistake. Are you lost? Where did you come from?" "But how?" Mirae asked, almost in a whisper. "The tiger!" He looked at her impatiently again, and then grabbed the wrist of her hand that held the tiger mask. "The ceremonial mask has strange powers," he said. "This is why no acolytes of the temple can use it. It's only reserved for the high priestess to use and is kept in her sanctuary. The mask's power and its secrets are too great for the uninitiated. Did you come from the temple? Perhaps we should visit Minha and straighten all of this out." Mirae suddenly felt very cold, as if she held ice in her hands instead of a mask. "Go back to the temple. I think for now I would like to take a walk before I return. I've been studying all morning and came across the mask by mistake. I'll probably get in trouble if I go back. She wondered if she should say such a thing to him, but she felt reluctant to face Minha now. Part 2, Scene 10. Now, Jariya and Minha are taking Murray around the temple. So this is one of the scenes in the temple at the crypt of the ancestors. The wall began to dissolve before their eyes, though the portal opening was only visible a few paces away from it. Jariya couldn't see anything happening from where she waited. Minha came to stand close to Murray and linked her arm to Murray's so they could walk into the crypt together. In moments they were standing in a shadowy antechamber built of the same gray marble as the lower levels of the temple, but ending in a shimmering pearl gate before them. The portal seemed to have closed behind them, and none of the torchlight that lit the corridors on that level illuminated the antechamber. Murray strained to see as she looked around the antechamber, but nothing was visible except the gray storm clouds beyond the gate ahead of them. "When will they come to speak to us?" Murray asked. "Should we call for them, or do we wait?" "It won't be long before one of them is alerted to our presence. I used to serve the king before Queen Jariya a short time before his abdication and entry into the crypt, so my scent will be familiar. I've often talked with him." "You're older than Jariya?" Murray asked, astonished. "Isn't she 400 years old or more?" Minha chuckled to herself. "Of course I'm older. In addition to being the temple priestess to the previous king, I gave birth to his heirs. I am Jariya and Biram's mother, and your grandmother." Such a strange world. And it is customary for the temple priestess or priest to marry the ruler. "And my father?" "One of the male temple acolytes who has gone into seclusion here already. Only the temple acolytes and royal family end up here. Civilians of Kabul later change into the magical pigeons you have already seen. They can either remain in service as messengers or go to live in the Forest of Bliss at the edge of Kabul. As they talked, Murray became aware of a shadow coming into the antechamber through the gate toward them. Studying it a moment, she nearly fell to her knees in shock. The ancestors. Instead of a human, Murray was confronted with the beautiful beast she saw in the plaza while wearing the mask. A white tiger with crystal blue eyes, 10 feet tall at the shoulder and 24 feet long. It came closer, its eyes steadily upon her. Murray took a step back. "Don't be afraid," Minha said, holding onto her arm. "It won't come too close. Didn't you say you saw one when you wore the mask yesterday?" The tiger came forward to the center of the room and sat in front of them. "Who is this, Minha?" it said in an oddly masculine voice. Murray was surprised to be able to understand it. "Ah, your majesty," Minha said in a formal tone. "This is your granddaughter, Jariya's daughter, who has come to investigate a mystery we have encountered in Kabul. We are on the verge of war with Biram, but now there seems to be complications. Someone named Lit, who claims to be from Kabul, has invaded a nearby land. We are struggling to make sense of it all." The tiger's brow furrowed in dismay. "Lit? Biram? The clan has been concerned ever since that boy has come in here that something like this would happen. You should have taken a stronger measure to control your son, Minha. Perhaps I retired too early. But Lit is another matter." "So Lit was here at one time?" Murray asked hesitantly. The tiger turned his attention fully to her. "Lit was one of the first of us to enter the crypt. When Biram broke in, many of us had noticed his absence, but the crypt distracts us from the problems of the world with its dream sleep. And we had no means, anyway, of discovering what may have happened. I can only surmise, knowing my son as I do. None of us saw him go. He just wasn't among us after Biram was thrown out of the crypt and the crypt was resealed. Biram was always skilled at black magic, especially traveling between the dimensions, and I suspect his resentment of Jariya fed his interest in it after the Pearl chose his sister to rule instead of him. However, he knew the rules of the kingdom and how it was run. He still had more advantages than any in the known world as an immortal of the royal house of Kabul, even if he wasn't a king, yet that wasn't enough for him. I'm sure he had the skill to come in to abduct Lit, to smuggle him back out into the outside world. I fear that for any of us in the crypt, returning to the outside world would bring a certain insanity to even the best of us. If that's what happened, it was Biram's primary goal in coming here that day. The magic would have been very strong for him to keep Lit from his beloved Blue Waterfall, where his home once stood thousands of years ago. It no longer was standing by the time I entered the crypt 400 years ago, though. He'd be very disappointed in our world now. if he has returned. There's a mansion there now, Murray said softly, thinking back to her dinner with Biram and his nymph and the beauty of the waterfall. I can understand why he was so drawn to the waterfall. I saw it myself yesterday when I visited Biram. It was astonishing. Excuse me, the tiger said, standing and looking at her more intently than before. Did you say it was rebuilt and Biram was there? How strange. My son Biram didn't have a romantic bone in his body, and a love for the blue waterfalls requires a romantic soul. We have reason to believe that Biram is using Lit as a puppet in the destruction of the human land of Alkmasun across the inner sea, Minha said. Messenger birds from the forest of bliss returned from there after centuries of service, afraid of some purge. Murray's adopted brother sent a letter about it, too. Yes, he said Lit had taken over and turned the inhabitants into bloodthirsty monsters, Murray said. The tiger was silent for a while. Biram was always interested in the worlds beyond the inner sea, the tiger continued after composing himself. His fortress was near there, so he could explore them better. When he broke into the crypt, the ancestors and I were able to glean enough of his memories to know that he had gone to both Earth where you had hidden Murray, and Alkmasun, as well as many others. Perhaps since Kabul was beyond him, he found them interesting places he could plot to take over more easily. But his kidnapping of Lit is disturbing. His actions are more than monstrous if his black magic has turned one of our oldest ancestors into a murderer and a tyrant. This must be stopped at all costs, Murray. As the heir to the throne, it is your duty to put an end to this madness, if it is in your power to do so. And what of Lit if I should find him? Can I really fight against Biram's black magic if it's so powerful? Lit cannot come back here until he is purified, the tiger said. Minha nodded in agreement. Biram's black magic and his renewed exposure both to Kabul's and human lands will make him vulnerable to return here, even if he is willing. We should bring him back to the temple and palace to test his spirit and prepare him to rejoin us in another 500 years. If he is guilty of the serious crimes that you refer to, then he must undergo execution. Your Majesty, Minha said, shocked. Must it go that far? None on the list of kings has ever been shamed by execution, and we don't even know what happened to the helm and dagger of Menmouth in the first place. Was it Biram's doing again? When did they go missing? If it turns out to be the same time as his breaking here, then he knew what punishment would await him in the future, when he was discovered. In that case, he too shall undergo the execution and be beheaded additionally. In such an immortal shall not be tolerated, especially if he has used his magic to corrupt our ancestor Lit. Lit was a fine man worthy of the crown long ago. It pains me to think what Biram might have done to him. Okay, I'm going to stop there from my excerpts from part 2. I will be doing a separate video next for part 3's excerpts, which takes us into the contemporary world, where the darkness from this war in Kabul and Alkmasun starts to infiltrate.